You know, friends, that there is no terrorism at all. All terrorist organizations are state-owned. They provide for the state. All terrorist organizations. Every state, strong or weak, it doesn't matter, creates terrorist organizations within itself, which then, if necessary, to intimidate their own population, to declare jihad within their country. Each state begins to use these very terrorist organizations, which, in principle, would never do anything on their own without the leadership of the party, that is, state officials. This is what a terrorist organization is. They have never been, they are never independent. They are always on donation. Do you remember how Putin used to deny that we don't have any PMCs? We just don't have them. Private military companies, and that they are all illegal. And then suddenly Putin, or some other suit, suddenly, to twist everything in the people's heads, begins to admit that the PMC Wagner has been endowed by the state for many years, and in this or last year, a certain amount of billions of rubles was spent on it. Putin talks about it. Well, what are you going to do? And where is the logic? That the PMC is illegal? Then how many billions of rubles?
And this is endless.
This is such a reset, when in your own head, suddenly you need to create a storm of emotions and revolutions. At this time, the officials begin to tell you one thing, then another, and you never know where the truth is. And so the people, on the one hand, speak out of the law, and on the other, they say, so this is ours. This is state. I'm talking about something else now. Not about Russia, not about the PMC, although all this is interconnected, in fact. Now I want to tell you what happened. What kind of betrayal of the Jewish people was committed by the hands of their own government? No one is going to investigate this because it is not profitable now, especially on the hot tracks. It is not profitable. It will be profitable later someday. Like the Holocaust. When did you start talking, friends? When many years passed after the war. When it was impossible. That is, there were no witnesses who restored. There were victims, but there were no witnesses of how it all happened. Now we will talk about today's events. About the great sacrifice on October 7th, 2023. Following the resettlement of Moshak, the sacrifice follows. And a huge one with great pain. And it was the Jews. But this is how it is introduced. This is a big world policy. The Jews themselves will not talk about it. They are those who live inside the state. Of course, they are afraid to say such things, and they can be understood. Everyone wants to live. Not everyone wants to get under the wheel of the machine of betrayal, as it is in Russia now. If you do not agree with the policy, and he is not a traitor, he just does not agree with the policy of war. And since you do not agree with the policy of war, you are a traitor. It's all very simple. And they will say that you have blown up some relays in the railway boxes. And they will say that you have blown up a plane somewhere. And they will say that you have set fire to some military command. What secrets do we have? What documents? What secrets do we have? From whom? From your brother Ukraine? No? What secrets? And you know that the military of these two countries always communicated like this. Well, just always. And what are the secrets? What do they need now? some secrets from some old men who supposedly. It will be the same in Israel, friends. And I want to tell you only one thing now. That a lot of questions were asked, which were marked by many bloggers in these days. And based on this designation, we can make a few conclusions that will make the Jewish government feel like a treacherous government of its people. They did not play up to Hamas. They forced Hamas to take these steps. Well, you can force it in different ways, friends. Why should we guess who was dressed up as a policeman? Because today they say that they were dressed up as policemen. That supposedly it was Hamas. Yes, there were employees and members of Hamas, but they were not Jews. They were not Israelis. How can it be? They guarded the music forum that was held at that time near the border. They guarded it. So who were they supposed to guard? Or what? There, where a fly will not fly along the Jewish border of Israel, a snake will not crawl. Suddenly, the policemen came dressed up. No, friends, you can't look at it this way. The policemen were their own. It was their own policemen. It was they who directed people from right to left. In order to let them go to the left, they drove them to the right to save the militants. Do you understand what they did? 4,000 survivors. 1 out of 4,000 will tell us a completely different number of deaths. No, friends. We can't believe those who have already lied, who have already committed, who have already set up this festival. Then they detained him for 3 hours. A music festival, right? And then they detained him for 3 hours. That is, it started far in the middle of the night. And already at 6:20, the storm allegedly began from the movie. Actually, there was no storm. The gates were open. Yes, there was not. 90% of the military were removed. 90% of the personnel were removed and removed from there. Everything was opened. Opened like Stalin once did. He opened the border for the Germans on the night from the 21st to the 22nd. If you remember 1940, what year? 1941. The borders were open. Didn't you know? Read how Brest fell, how the guys in Brest tried to defend themselves. But everything was open. The whole border of Brest was open. Now Israel, do you feel one leadership? One leadership, one action. There were the 1940s. And here, well, 80 years have passed, so what? The leadership is still the same. The goals are the same. It is necessary for the people to die as much as possible. It was a great sacrifice made on October 7th, 2023. So friends, let's summarize and take all those, not mistakes, but the points of betrayal of the Jewish government. The Israeli one. What was done? The bloggers write that obviously some high-ranking officers of Mossad, Shabak, and Kahal are involved in this. Well, of course, they are involved because the government is involved. Terrorists without help inside these services, sometimes and under no circumstances and conditions. They would not have been able to plan it, let alone make such a plan. Yes, of course. No, there are no terrorists. There is a task, there is an operation. It was an operation of great sacrifice of their own people. In order to wake up their own people, to push them to justify some actions of state officials, which will now begin to justify the murder in the gas sector, completely destroyed. Jews will have to justify all this because the government pushed them to do this, because they saw the wildness, this fear of savages, who I don't even know how to describe what they were doing, because this is a terrible phenomenon, when really wild, wild people attacked women and children. No one can tell how many children left went into the hands of Hamas, into the hands of terrorists. What is Hamas? Part of Israel probably sponsors, part of Russia. So this is a general agreement. The top officials of the army ignored hundreds of different evidences of what was happening in the gas sector and along the fence of action. But of course they ignored it. They have their own plans for this. They allowed a festival for 4,000 participants 3 kilometers from the fence of the gas sector. This has never happened before. People ask the question, what was going on for 6 hours from the moment of the massive terrorist attack? Where was the police, the army, the reserve forces, the duty forces? And they were all released. 90% of the security forces were released. They were on vacation at the time, so who gave the order? But who can give an order except their own general staff, friends? And then another question, who gave the order to disperse the Air Force at home and on vacation, including abroad? 80% of the military pilots were released right on the eve of the attack. That is, all the military pilots, almost all of them, 80%, were released on vacation at all, and including abroad, so that they could not come quickly, could not get to the place of service quickly. Well, now the most important thing, terrorists were in the clothes of the Israeli military. Terrorists were in the clothes of the Israeli police. Where did they get the uniform of the soldiers of the Sakhalin? Who gave them the detailed maps of the military bases, support points, including the planning and list of the security staff? Who blocked the operational communication when the attack began? Why did the command staff of the district and the general staff of Kyrgyzstan remain silent and did not give orders until 10 a.m.? Well, why did they remain silent and did not give orders? But the calls started right away. At 6 a.m., 7 a.m., they were already calling those who were running in the desert and did not know where to go. And the militants were chasing them in jeeps and shooting. Do you understand that if the festival were not delayed, but it was purposefully delayed for several hours of the festival opening? That is, in general, everyone is in cahoots. The participants of the festival were victims, and the organizers are in cahoots with the Israeli government. No, not with Hamas, but with the Israeli government. They delayed the opening of the festival for 3 hours. The festival has already begun at midnight, and of course, it was in full swing. Maybe a little bit, yes, by 6 o'clock. But this is a music festival. 6 hours of music for people in the middle of the desert. Yes, they were specifically sent there as victims. People are outraged. People do not know how they survived. But they really survived. Just a few people. One guy tells how he tried to get out in his Jeep and wanted to go to the left, to the road, to return to the direction where he came from. No, he was sent to the right by the Israeli police. And they said there was no way out. But the guy, no, from those who listened, he spoke Russian. But this is brain activity. Yes, we scold each other. Dementia, degenerates, and so on. But Russian blood, educated people in extreme situations, they know that you can't listen to the leadership of the radio or the soldier at the intersection. No, you have to do as your mind tells you. And the guy drove a little to the right and drove around the desert, this checkpoint, and returned to the left, and he was already one of the last to be able to escape. Several more jeeps followed him. Who was able to escape? Several more jeeps followed him, ran past him, drove at high speed, and that's it. And there was already a mess.
That is, they were the last ones who managed to break through and who were not caught up by the Arabs.
Until 10 o'clock in the morning. Where were the officers? Where were the top officers? That's it. It happened at 6 o'clock. They were already making calls. And where were the officers? And what? No one warned them? This is deliberate provocation. This is deliberate action. Bloggers say that there is accurate information that operational data from military bases were somehow transferred to Hamas according to the number of people. But I think that this is not such a difficult transfer, that someone transferred this operational data somewhere. They already knew everything the day before. All these operational data were developed together. If this is a joint sacrifice operation, and these are the last days of the holiday, the day of the trial, the day of the trial, the last days, then excuse me. This is a sacrifice on this day, a holiday. Therefore, all these girls who were raped, torn apart, beaten, broken, especially the children who were taken somewhere in cages. This, friends, is again a part of the sacrifice. Of course, Hamas could not carry out such an operation on the territory of Israel without the support of Israel itself. That is, you can stop, establish all sorts of contacts. Today, what does it matter? When the entire Israeli military apparatus, I mean the highest staff, not the lowest, but the highest, is involved in this operation, in the sacrifice operation. And I believe, friends, this is only my personal opinion, that the Orthodox were just spinning all this.
This could have been their supply.
You cannot touch them, friends. But this affects the entire population. The population of Israel fled. Of course, the Russian-speaking, as Ehrlich called them, the sausage aliyah, they fled first. And of course, not the sausage aliyah, but the richest, the golden aliyah, the diamond aliyah, they fled first. Chubais, Gaukin, Pugachev. And what are we going to judge them for, friends? You know, many have come to judge that they have no sense of patriotism. Why were they born in Israel? Well, they are Jews, so what? But Israel saves them for their own money. They pay money everywhere. And Galkin, and Pugachev, and Chubais, who, it is not known in which direction he flew. Only now they say that he returned to Israel. Who do you believe? Who can you believe? Galkin, who is sitting in Cyprus, says, "We will come to speak on the 20th, and it is not known what will happen on the 20th in Israel." But Galkin says, "Oh, I was wrong, I was wrong. We are already here, we are here, of course." I mean, he says live, "We will come to perform on the 20th. I have a concert." Yes, he will come from Cyprus. Why should we condemn him? He is a person who is not going to fight. This is not his sacrifice, and he is not going to be a sheep on the slope. The smart people ran away. The rest will remain sheep on the slope. In Israel, it will not be good anymore, friends. The Al-Aqsa Mosque, which is behind me, is the one that is designated by two religions. Now they will be mixed, and the Saudis will join here, and all the others will mix together. For what? In order to make a new religion? And for this, a great sacrifice is needed. And the Jews, as always, bring their own sacrifice to the altar of the future of a new religion, and the future of their own people. And for this, for the future of their people, it is necessary to bring a part of their people as a sacrifice. It is not for nothing that you have seen when a father brings his son as a sacrifice. It is only then the beautiful end that the Lord says, and holds his father's hand so that he does not kill his son and does not bring a sacrifice. I see you are so faithful to me. All this, of course, is a fairy tale about a white bull. In fact, these sacrifices are brought from their children for the good of the future. It is for the good of the future of the Jewish great people, and mainly of the rich people, and not of the ordinary people, that such sacrifices are made. And the smart Israelis need to understand who betrayed them today in order to draw their own conclusions. Not Hamas, but their own government. Here I have listed the points on which you can understand that the entire senior officers were not present, did not participate, and only after 7-8 hours did they start some new operations. I am Tanya Karatsuba Said Burkhan. Dear friends, today we are on October 16, 2023,